Gardner here for Municipal World. We're in beautiful Quebec City this week in the run-up to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities annual conference. Joining me in the Municipal World Media Center is Sheila Bassi-Kellett, the CAO for the City of Yellowknife. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Susan. Pleasure to be here. Big fan.
Thank you. So glad that you could come in to chat. We're kind of situated in different parts of a very big country, so it's fantastic when we have the opportunity to have folks in and tell us what's happening in their neck of the woods.
Well, thank you. And I'm so happy to be here because I'm a bit of a municipal geek. I've been the city administrator for the City of Yellowknife for just over 2 years, but I have a long career that's been working in and around municipal governance while working for the government of the Northwest Territories and at other places. I was always involved in the municipal world. And I'm always struck by how this is the most immediate level of government. We are the most accessible, and we are the one that I believe can be the most nimble as well. So there's lots of expectations that come with that and lots of pressure points. And I think every municipality, every municipal leader, every mayor, every councillor, every CAO knows that the reality is you are dealing with people complaining about parking, and you are also dealing with the big, massive issues that drive the well-being of your community. And I think that dichotomy is endlessly fascinating and always makes for very interesting work. Absolutely. The North is no different. So when I think about when you say it's great to have Yellowknife here, and we're really thrilled to be here, and I'm down for the CAMA conference, my mayor's coming down next week for FCM, we know that we are very much in that mix. That it doesn't matter if you are Sachs Harbor, population 100 in the Northwest Territories, or you're the City of Toronto. Sometimes we're dealing with that same balancing act of the different needs and aspirations of our residents. So never a dull moment. Yellowknife is, we're the capital city of the Northwest Territories. We are about 22,000 people, and that sounds like a small town. And I grew up in Toronto.
I was going to say, you're a big city girl.
Well, and so a lot of my friends in Toronto will say, oh, so Yellowknife's a lot like Owen Sound or different communities of that size. And I think to myself, yes and no. Size-wise, perhaps we are, but there's a lot more going on as a capital city. We have an incredible diversity of cultures in the city of Yellowknife. People that have come related to gold mining and diamond mining, and I'm half East Indian, and there's a huge festival that always happens. The Wali is celebrated. Huge Philippine community as well. So there's great diversity in our community. Well, we are in the North, and so in my 33 years living in the North, I feel like such an old-timer when I say this now. I see big differences in terms of what's going on, just in terms of climate change, and we are at the forefront. We truly are, and we're seeing that in a lot of work that manifests itself for municipal governments. The City of Yellowknife, we're very pleased that this year we've been recipients. We put a pretty kick-ass application together to the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund that the federal government, Department of Infrastructure and Cities, has put together for the country, knowing that as climate change is becoming more of a reality, municipalities are dealing with threats of wildfires. Heaven help us, please keep high levels safe. Flooding, all of the different manifestations that we're seeing. And we certainly are aware of that, and we've had some issues that we've been dealing with in our community that the federal government has acknowledged and recognized. Part of this disaster mitigation adaptation funding that we're going to be receiving is towards replacing our water intake line, which, you know what, I geek out over this stuff. A lot of people don't, but I think in our municipal context,
Absolutely.
We draw our water right now from the Yellowknife River, and we have a 50-year-old water pipeline that goes underneath Yellowknife Bay that goes to our water intake, our water treatment plant, And we are... the many glamorous things and wonderful things about Yellowknife, one of the things as well that we have to deal with is that we have a 80-year-old gold mine that was shut down about 15 years ago and is in the process of mine remediation right now. The process that was used with the giant mine during the days it was mining included a roaster that used and resulted in a lot of arsenic trioxide as a byproduct. Oh. And so the reality for Yellowknife is this remediation project is a reality.
What does remediation look like for a project like that?
The remediation for this project, so I'll just finish off by saying part of the risk for us with our water supply is that we will always want to be upriver of the giant mine project. Mm-hmm. So that was part of the recognition that the federal government gave us in looking for the replacement of this water intake line and our access to the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. So being smack dab on the cusp and the doorstep of this mine, Yellowknife is a community where traditionally Indigenous people lived and were settled in the area. While nomadic, they were very much settled in the area around Yellowknife Bay for many years. That's traditional lands of Chief Dry Geese, and many people have lived and worked in that area, including Sir John Franklin when he was passing through, met with Indigenous leaders in the area as well. So we've got a long history in the area, but settlers came in the 1930s mostly as a result of gold. Gold was discovered on the shores of Yellowknife Bay, and 2 gold mines were set up. And so the great line about Yellowknife is we are bookended. We have been bookended by these 2 now former gold mines. And so the great line was that the gold was paved with streets because the gold mine, the gold seam went underneath the city. So these mines were great in their heyday, and they brought a lot of people north. But when they closed down, one of the mines, Giant Mine, because of the process that was used, there's an incredibly toxic legacy of this. And so the federal government has intervened because the mine owners, of course, times were different then, and the same securities weren't put on to look at the afterlife of a mine. The federal government has had a large role to play in looking at what we do with all of this arsenic trioxide. It's very interesting to note that during the life of the gold mine, which was about 50 years, and all the gold it produced, we conceivably could see a remediation project that brings more economic value to the community than all of those years of mining gold. So we are pleased to see the remediation project that's underway. It's poignant because in an ideal world we would not have that being the case, but that is what's going on with us. So the remediation is part of the economic development angle that we are looking at right now. We partner quite strongly with our Indigenous neighbors, the Yellowknife Dene First Nation, and they have a development company that has quite a big stake in the cleanup. We're very happy about that because we want to see the benefit maximized locally. If this mine had the legacy that it did, and it had a pretty horrific legacy for people, Indigenous peoples that were around, there are a couple of cases of deaths that happened to small children that were living on the Yellowknife Dene First Nation in the 50s as a result of the mine. And so we do want to see something positive come out of this. So particularly to see the mine remediation result in benefits in the north.
Fantastic. So what does that remediation look like? Is that in terms of the technical process they're going to use to do it, do you know?
Could not tell you. I know that they're looking at freezing the arsenic trioxide underground and keeping it frozen for many, many years to come. As our partners at the Yellowknife Dene First Nation are very, very clear about, the legacy of this will be very, very important to note and acknowledge that there is very toxic material buried underground. And so there's a lot of work that our partners at the Yellowknife Dene First Nation have put in to acknowledging what will happen in 500 years. How will that message still be continued on for people in the future to know that there is something very toxic buried here? So I think that's a very important part of this.
Absolutely.
We know that language changes, culture changes, knowledge changes. So it'll be very important to make sure that that knowledge base remains.
And that kind of future focus about, what's happened in the past and understanding what it is today and making sure that's communicated to the future. That's kind of it's kind of unique to a perspective that First Nations kind of bring to the forward generations and so on.
Absolutely.
So it's great that that's being tapped into.
Very much so. I think the one thing I'm very proud of at the City of Yellowknife is we have for a long time been neighbors with the Yellowknife Dene First Nation. Obviously, they predated any settlers being in the area. There are 2 communities that are set up that are part of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation, and they are overall part of the Acacho territory. And the Acacho territory is in the process right now of finalizing their Indigenous rights agreement in tripartite negotiations with the federal government and the government of the Northwest Territories. And we at the city are very excited about this. The timing has been really good. I think relations between the city and the First Nation have not always been ideal, but I am very proud to say within the last, in the very recent past, we have done a lot on this. So we're working to support YKDFN on finalizing their Indigenous rights agreement. Part of that involves looking at the boundary between the city of Yellowknife and the First Nation and working things out in a way that meet our respective interests. And we've been very successful in getting to the point of having a good conceptual idea that we're going to be bringing forward over the course of the next few months to be able to make public and finalize. So we're very pleased about that. We've worked with YKDFN on an economic development partnership as well. We're very pleased that we are one of 9 across the country, 9 recipients of a process that has been partially set up with Federation of Canadian Municipalities and CANDO. And I'm going to forgive me on this one, I'm not going to be very good with the acronym.
Okay.
Canadian Aboriginal Economic Development Partnership. They've been set up to set up these 9 partnerships, and we are one with the YKDFN. And together we're recognizing we both have our respective economic development visions of what we want to do,
Right.
but there's a great amount of overlap. We live beside each other. We know the opportunities that are there. And so for us to have a formal mechanism to align where it makes sense on our
Yes.
economic development initiatives makes great sense. And as an aside, I have to say, for many years I worked at the territorial government in the area of I work for the Department of Municipal and Community Affairs, and what I find fascinating is there was always so much discussion about the role of municipal government and what municipal government does, and it's dirt dumps and dogs, or parking and barking, and all of those great cliches that come up around what municipalities are. And I can honestly say that in my tenure as city administrator, I spend so much time on the political relationships, economic development, social issues. And that, I think, is really the reality of municipal government in the age that we live in. We are so much more in a sometimes a challenging sense. Sometimes issues are offloaded onto us by other orders of government, which can be completely unfair. And frankly, there are times when I think to myself, you know what? Other orders of government, get out of our way. I think we can do things a lot more efficiently and effectively than you can. So when it comes down to the economic development file, I'm fascinated with the amount of time that's been spent on this, but clearly it is a priority because having a robust economy obviously creates a robust community.
Absolutely.
And so we're doing a lot of work on that right now. So tourism is a big thing for Yellowknife. Well, we're very fortunate in the Northwest Territories that a reality for us is that we have the Northern Lights. The Aurora Borealis are a beautiful, beautiful natural occurrence that goes on. And so these have attracted a lot of tourists from other parts of the world, particularly Japan, China, Korea. We're getting a lot of tourists from there. So we are really working to make sure that we can capitalize on this great gift that we have of having tourists coming and looking for the beauty that is the North. We want to make sure when they come, they have a fantastic experience. The reality is that sometimes on a cloudy night, you may not see the aurora. And so we want to make sure that everything else that they experience in Yellowknife makes for a really memorable experience.
So you're doing some capacity building around
Absolutely. Yeah.
things to come and enjoy.
Through some an interesting turn of events, the city of Yellowknife has inherited the visitor center. And we took it on as in the short term, wanting to develop a longer term option that certainly would not see us being the direct delivery agent for that. We are still the direct delivery agent, but we're looking at a partnership to make sure that we can benefit from the wisdom around people that do tourism as a full-time job, that they can be the ones that are really driving and bringing excitement to the world of tourism. So that we're excited about. We also want to capitalize on the fact that climate change notwithstanding, we are a cold climate. And so cold weather testing has been something that's really been taking off for us as well in the economic world. We've had a lot of car companies, planes, helicopter companies coming, testing their equipment, testing what they can do under cold conditions. And it's pretty glamorous when you see a Porsche driving on an ice road. So I think there's some marketing things that some of these firms bring with them as well.
Yeah.
So the economy is big for us. Like I said, we are very, very aware of the issues that arrive with climate change as well. An upside to that can be that we're really increasing our footprint when it comes to agriculture. And no one thinks of the North as being a place to grow things. We have an intense growing season. So from May to September, the amount of sunlight we have is insane. And my husband claims he can see our rhubarb growing in front of his eyes. But so for many years, people always grow things for their own purposes in Yellowknife. I've got a great garden that I love, and we really enjoy harvesting each year. But we're taking that to the next level. And there are some commercial spaces and commercial greenhouses and growing that's going on. So I think agriculture, given the changes in climate, given the changes in what we're seeing in terms of weather patterns and conditions, is an emerging opportunity for us in Yellowknife as well that we really want to take advantage of. Another thing that we're doing around the economic development angle is that the city of Yellowknife is being very, very proactive in lobbying for a university to be located in the Northwest Territories. We don't have one right now, and we are really poignant when we think about our high school students that are leaving the north to go to universities in southern Canada and elsewhere. We're a little bit puzzled, and I guess we figured out that this is not good when we see a number of our students taking on graduate studies in post-secondary institutions in the circumpolar world, where they go to places like Toronto to study Indigenous governance in the Northwest Territories. Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
So we have been lobbying actively for a university in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. And a lot of people are scratching their heads saying, well, Yellowknife, you're a municipality, you don't have a role to play in building a university. And absolutely, we do not want to enter into that field. We fully want to be lobbying the federal and territorial government to be active in terms of doing this. But we do recognize that we have a role to play when it comes to making sure that there's an amazing student experience. Students don't just want school, they want good places to live that don't cost them an arm and a leg. They want to have a pool to go to, they want good libraries, they want cafes, they want to go and have a beer. And we can certainly make sure that the climate for a really successful university exists. So in addition to lobbying the orders of government and other partners that are involved in this, we certainly look to the role that a municipality plays in making sure that it's a beautiful place to have a university.
Livable community where people want to study and live and
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming to chat with us. It's been very educational about what's happening in the north, and certainly it's piqued my interest, and I'm sure many others, about coming up to Yellowknife. And what's the best time to visit?
You know what? I would say there's many times. Summer is spectacular. My personal favorite time of the year is March. It is Canada. We are the playground of the north because the sun is back. The temperatures are reasonably reasonable. I guess for winter temperatures, it's a dry cold. And the Snowcastle Festival is on. We have a number of different jamborees and festivals. Cross-country skiing is amazing. The ice roads are open. It's a spectacular time of the year.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
I'm Susan Gardner from Municipal World. We share your stories.